Hey everyone, this is Josh Galvin with Tizish.com. On this 1 hour webinar, I'm going to show you the lesson 2 of the step-by-step marketing plan, which is how to organize your website content. Now, before figuring out how to organize your website content, there's several key things you need to understand, which are general marketing principles about organizing website content. And then number 2, what are the lead capture buttons on your site so you know exactly what the intention is of all of these, going all the way down here. And then number 3, coming back to the main point of how to organize your content, what categories and what kind of tools that are integrated into your site should you be using to best organize your content. We're going to go over all those on this webinar, and the whole purpose at the end of the webinar is so that you'll have this key idea on how your website will be every single button will be a lead capturing hub. Alright, so that's the whole idea. So I have an outline prepared for everybody. And the outline is it's not going to be the same as you see here, because I use a little text document. You have a Word document that's going to have the tutorials with every step. Like, for instance, when we get down a little further, there's steps that I talk about, 1 through 6, I believe, 1 through 5, and I'll have video tutorials next to them showing you what I'm doing. The key thing I want you to be learning on this video is not so much the how-tos of I'm doing it. So when I talk about creating landing pages for your categories, I don't want you to use this video as the how-to of how to do that part. I have a separate video tutorial for that. Instead, I want you to use this video as the marketing understanding of why I'm saying to do that. This is the marketing video tutorial, not so much the basic how the heck do I function and do this part. Alright? So let's dive in. And first, let's begin. I've written down some general marketing principles that you need to understand about your website. Alright? Now, the first general idea, before we go into 3 points that I've already written down, the first problem. And remember, let's put our hats on for lead generation and conversion, meaning let's start thinking about how does your website need to be more focused for lead generation and conversion. Alright, so here's the number one biggest problem that real estate agent websites have when it comes to lead conversion. And it's simply, you see it right here. One of the biggest problems with real estate agent sites is that they try to close too early. And what do I mean by that? Here's what I mean by that, alright? And this is the core concept. I'm going to hit on this concept for a good, I believe, 10-15 minutes or maybe longer. It depends on how it comes out. But here's what I mean. The problem with real estate agent websites is that they close too early. Here's my exact point. Let's say I'm a seller and I see what will my home really sell for today, right? So I click on that, and instead when I click on it and it starts loading up, let's see the page that I'm brought to. Alright, so when the page loads up, here's the whole point. So look at the way the lead captures for this page. The closing happens way too fast. So let's say if I'm a seller again, let's rewind for a second. I want to learn about how much is my home worth. What's the general thing, the old school way I'm calling it, of lead capture? You come to a general page, you come to a page with one bit of general information, and then it immediately asks for a report. That's closing way too fast, alright? So then what is the solution? What do we have to make this website be like in order to not close that fast? Alright, so here's the actual solution. Simple. It needs to become a concierge of information. Alright, and here's what I mean by that. I use the word concierge to actually use this example of when you go to a hotel. You know, when you go to a hotel, and let's say you're traveling to an area, like you're traveling completely to a whole different region, right? So let's just say you're in Aspen or Colorado. You could be anywhere, but you're in a good hotel with a nice concierge that knows his stuff about the area. And you go to the concierge and you ask him, what is there good to eat around here? Where are some great restaurants? What does the concierge do? He gives you a menu of options. Are you looking for Chinese, Russian, Italian, French, German, or let's just, whatever the case is, you get a menu of options. By him asking a question back, you then answer further and say, I'm looking for Italian. And then he comes with the next options. Well, you could go here, you could go here, you could go here. So you're giving good, full, precise service. Now, your website needs to be just like that for your specific topics. So let's rewind now, and let's just say someone does come to your website. I'm a seller, and I'm going to click on what will my home really sell for today, right? Well, instead of, I know I might have a different question. You got to keep in mind, a seller, if they're asking themselves that question, they might be in different positions. Are they thinking that it's are they just starting to look to get a base of values today? Are they looking because maybe their home is really still on the market right now and they're just curious why isn't their home selling? Are they looking to sell in the months ahead? there's different kind of sellers with their thought process that would be in this position clicking on this kind of button. So when they come to a page like this that's very general, this isn't going to convert anybody. So instead, let's now make it like a concierge, and you're going to see this on the rest of this webinar, by the way. We're going to transform these pages to be more concierge type, and you're going to see the exact process, the 5-step process to do it. But basically, now picture I come to this how much is my home worth page, and instead I get a general description of something, or maybe a video telling me about home values. And then as I scroll down, what I start seeing are different blog postings having to do with home values, like maybe a topic like how to price your home, the 7 mistakes sellers make when pricing their home, how to assure your home won't sell, like loads of marketing messages, right? That right there is going to cause me as a seller to stay on this page, click one of the blog postings, and then read on. And then you have to understand this fundamental principle. The deeper someone gets into your website, meaning if they click on one page, and then on this page they click on another page, and then on that page they click on another, meaning they're getting deeper and deeper into your website, the more higher rate of conversion you're going to have for that lead. So I'm going to rewind right now and explain this again, because this is the #1 most important point of every great website. It needs to be a concierge of information, and you need to not close too early. So the first point you need to realize, and by the way, I'm going to hammer this point home a lot, because this is really if you don't understand this concept before moving on, then everything I explain afterwards will not make complete sense, or you won't internalize the main message. So again, the biggest problem is you close too early. Websites close way too early. When I click on what's my home worth, I'm not literally expecting to see here's the report for what my home is worth. I'm probably looking for more information. So as a concierge type, now I would get more details information, right? So the whole point is this: you close to be a concierge. Number 2, about now the question gets raised. Let's say your website becomes a concierge. Well, after it becomes a concierge of information, let's go with our example. And I know right now you're not seeing an example. Don't worry. I'm going to revisit this exact same point at the end, because this is the start of the process where I'm just showing you what's going to happen. At the end of this webinar, we're going to have the categories and the pages created like concierge pages, and then I'm going to re-explain this point so it'll make final sense again. Alright, so anyhow, so now the question is then, if your page becomes a concierge, so let's say someone clicks on what will my home really sell for, and it becomes a concierge of the topic of home values, for instance. Well, then the question is, where the heck do you capture the lead? If there's no lead capture form or anything on the page, where do you capture the lead? And the answer is simple: your individual blog articles, as we're going to see. So like, let's say if this was a concierge of information for how much is my home worth, and we see subtopics like how to price your home, how to sell your home in 30 days, the 7 biggest mistakes sellers make when pricing their home. When I see those subtopics, well, those subtopics themselves become the lead capture points. And think about it logically in this way: instead of your how much is my home worth page having one chance of closing on them, you now present them with multiple chances of closing with different subtopics that appeal to more type of sellers depending on where their mindset is of buying or of selling their home. Are they just thinking of selling? Do they need to sell in the next 30 days? Maybe they're currently listed and they know their listing's going to expire. There's a lot of different sellers that would click on this button. So now, by having a concierge of information, different blog topics that appeal to different mindset of different sellers, you're going to now increase the chances of lead conversion. So the simple answer to the question of where will you start closing for the leads if you're not doing it on your main lead capture pages, the answer is on your actual blog postings themselves. Alright, and we're going to see an example of that. We're going to see many examples during the rest of this webinar. So keep that in mind. And now the third thing is, again, you can't talk about creating this big infrastructure without talking about how the heck are you going to manage it. How are you going to manage it? Manage your overhead, right? You got to always look at that. Anytime you talk online marketing stuff, you got to always ask yourself, how much time is this going to take me? How am I going to manage the updating of it? All the overhead questions. So the third final point about the marketing principle of doing it like making your lead capture pages like a concierge is it makes it easy for you to manage the updating of your site while keeping it structured. Here's what I mean, and you're going to have these exact points. But here's what I mean by this. When you have your content, when you have your archives, your categories made, and we're going to come here quickly, shortly, but just to explain the point, section 2 that I go over shortly, where I explain the different categories you should have. Well, this is going to pretty much cover all the topics that you're going to pretty much be talking about on your website. So when you create them as a concierge type pages versus simple one page lead capture pages, this makes it easy for you to update your content and manage your content. Because let's say in 1 week you had a content about sellers, or maybe you had 1 month where you had a lot of buyer activity and nothing with sellers, so you didn't update your website with seller stuff, but you updated it with loads of buyer stuff. By doing what we're doing today and organizing your categories in this proper way, as you get a massive influx of buyer topics or seller topics, it's going to be easy for you to put them into your website and keep the organizational structure intact. So another big problem agents have is they don't organize their website infrastructure, and then they're going to go and start adding a lot of content, which is amazing because creating content at the end of the day really is the key. But then what happens after creating loads of content is that there's a nightmare of organizing it. And then what ends up happening is you'll have a website that gets 20,000, 15,000, 25,000 hits a month, but you have a lot of dead ends, meaning you have a high bounce rate, which means people come to your website and then they end up leaving right away because they can't seem to find what they originally came to your website for. Those kind of problems are caused by not organizing your content, your lead capture pages like a concierge. So this concierge, by doing this now, it's going to help you organize your content and for the next 6 months, year, and so forth. All right? And that's going to help you with your overhead, because that just becomes extremely easy for you to point to someone, go here for my website. You need this, it's right here on my website. It becomes extremely easy for you to manage. All right? So those are the 3 points. I'm going to repeat just the general principle. Your website pages, your lead capture pages, should not close too early. They need to close on a second or third layer of once someone clicks on it, all right? And I'm going to use better examples right now as we move on. So remember, just think of the concept, the hotel concierge. Your website needs to become that. I'm going to revert back to that restaurant example because I'm sure everyone's experienced that in some way. Or maybe, where's the good nightlife? Where's the good bar? Where's the good something? When you go to a new area and you ask the concierge, they give you options. So your website needs to be like a concierge. Literally, be just like that. Be exactly what they provide, all right, in terms of the value of information.